Okay, Tanya, we're in the middle of Perek Chof. In the Tanya's, it's on top, it's page Chavov. On the bottom, it's page 86. Okay, we are 2, 4, 6, 8 lines in the top of the page of page Chavov. Last week we learned at the beginning of Perek Chof that Anechi and Layia Lacha, I am God, your God, and you should not have any other gods. That's the essence of the whole Torah. Everything else is an explanation. And he explains, what does that mean to explain it? So he says like this. To explain this, we need to understand the concept of the oneness of Hashem. And he says, God doesn't change whether there is a world or there isn't a world. Like it says, Ani Hashem lo shenisi, the pasuk says, I am God, I have not changed. Another thing says, another pasuk says, in davening we say, Atahu kredem shenivra ha'olam, God, you were there before the world was created. Atahu mishenivra ha'olam, you are there since the world was created. And obviously, Siddur explains, that's not telling me a statement of fact. God, you were there before, now you're there. Big deal. That's understood. Of course, God was there before the world and he's there now. What the tefillah is saying is not only God, you were there before the world and now you're there that there's a world. The mean that we say in the davening like this, the same way you existed before the world was created, the same way you're existing now that the world is created. Meaning, just like before Hashem created the world, the only thing that existed was Hashem. Now that the world was created, the only thing that exists is Hashem. And Al Rebbe starts explaining why. Because he says like this. How did Hashem create the world? Hashem created the world by Yomer Elikim. That's it. Hu Amar, Hashem said, Vayehi, it became. In davening, we say a pasuk to Tehillim, Bidvar Hashem, with the one word of God, Shamayim Nasu, the heavens were made. Now, the world is from one word of Hashem's mouth. Okay? Now, by a person, and this we discussed it outside last week, now we're going to see it inside. One word of a person's speech compared to the power of speech that the person has is 1 to infinite. The power of speech of a person is infinite. You don't lose power of speech by talking a lot. Actual speech is limited because we live 120 years. 120 years is X amount of seconds. It's very easy to figure out. It takes a second to say a word. So realistically speaking, we can only speak limited words. But the power of speech is infinite. So if Hashem created the universe with one word, and I mentioned this morning, they just found out that there's new stars, new planet, 24 million light years away. You know, have any idea how much it is? And it's so limited. Now, if one word compared to the power of speech is nothing, how much more nothing is one word compared to the power of thought, which is higher than the power of speech? How much more so is it nothing compared to the midas, the emotions? How much more so is it compared nothing to the intellect? How much more so is it nothing compared to the willpower? How much more so is it nothing compared to the essence? So therefore, the whole universe, which is one word from Hashem's mouth, doesn't even change the power of speech. Definitely doesn't change the power of thought. So therefore, it doesn't change Hashem in any way whatsoever. Let's see it inside. 10 lines in the top of the page. In the person that's nefesh. when a person says one word, this one word, klei mamish, is nothing. Afilu legabi klolos nefsha medaberes, even compared to the power of speech that the person has. Shubechinas levusham tzoi shalom, which is not even the higher faculty. Thought is higher than speech. It's the middle one of thought, speech, and action. Shukeach hadiba shalom, which is the power of speech. Sheyachol ledaber diburim le'en ketz v'tachlis. So one word that you speak by a person, compared to the power of speech that our neshama has, is one to infinite. Because shekain, how much more nothing is it? Legabi bechinas levush hapnimi shalom, compared to the higher garment of the soul, which is machshava, thought, shemimanu nimshechu hadiburim, that words come from thought, v'chayusam, and it's their life. Meaning, when a person speaks, even though most of us speak without thinking, but we still need to think how to verbalize the words. So the power of speech is coming from the power of thought, but power of thought is much greater than the power of speech. How much more so is it nothing? Compared to the essence of the soul, now, which are the 10 levels of Chabad, Chochmah, Bina Das, and that all that. Where does thought come from? Intellect stimulates midas. Midas, emotions, stimulate thought. If I like it, I'm going to think it, and then I'm going to speak it, and then I'm going to do it. And he says like this, because thought, thought is also language. It's also letters. You know, each one of us think in letters of our own language. But even in thought, let me give you an example. Anytime you think, automatically there's letters in the way you think. Now, if I have to make a speech, and now I have to think in my mind what words I'm going to say, that is also thought still, but it's a thought more connected to speech, because now in my thought, I'm forming the words, what I'm going to say. But even without thinking in letters, we think in letters, even if we're not aware of it. Every person thinks in the language they know, whatever their mother tongue is. Some people might be English, Yiddish, French, Farsi, German, Spanish, whatever. But you still, whenever you think, you're thinking letters, because that's how you think. It's not tangible letters yet because you're not thinking how to put it into words, but it's still letters. Oh, he says, thought has letters, but it's more refined. They're not tangible. You can't measure them like you can measure speech. You can tape speech. You can't tape your thought. Not yet, at least. And therefore, I'm sorry, but the 10 levels of Chabad, intellect and emotions. That's the source of thought. And but in Midas, there's no thought, there's no letters. Before you put it into thought. In simple English like this. I can ask you, what language do you think in? Okay. I can't ask you, what language do you love in? Love doesn't have letters. Love is an emotion of the heart. Fear is an emotion of the heart. There's no letters there yet. Letters originate, according to what we're learning now. Another place in Chassidus says the nefesh is full of letters, but that's not for now. What we're learning here is letters begin in thought, become more tangible and verbalized in speech. in the midas of a person. You can't say, I love in English. That I love the person in English. I love them in French or German, whatever. Love is above letters. Letters become existing when it comes into thought. So now, if you're talking about, when we say letters, we're including pictures, hieroglyphics. Those are also letters. When you see a picture, you're thinking it in your language, what you see. Seeing is thought. If I see something, I see letters in the language I know. But feelings are above letters. And what Alter Rebbe is saying was very simple. If one word is nothing compared to the power of speech, it's more nothing compared to the power of thought, which is also letters, but much more refined letters. How much more so is one word nothing compared to the level of emotions, midas, that don't even have letters in them? And he says, Lamashal, he said, Dr. Rebbe says, when you all of a sudden you have an emotion of love. Before it goes from the heart to the mind to think about it, there's no letters. Like I said, you don't love in fear in any language. It's languageless. It's not limited in letters. If I want to think about them, I want to talk to them, then it becomes letters. But that's when it comes into the garment of thought and speech. And definitely when you write it, it becomes action letters, even more tangible. But the Rebbe is bringing out now that just by a person, one word, compared to the power of speech, thought, midas, seichel, even higher, is zilch, nil, zilch, nothing. How much more so, Dr. Rebbe is going to say in the next parak, is it when it comes to Hashem? So just like this one word that a person says will cause no change whatsoever in the power of speech. If I have 100 cups of something, okay, and I take out with a dropper, I take out 10 drops. Those 10 drops affected the 100 cups that I have. Now it's less. It's 100 cups minus 10 drops. But when I speak, that speech, one word that I say, or no matter how much I say, is not taking away from the power of speech. It's not making my power of speech less, because that's infinite. How much more so to thought? How much more so to? And he says, it's pashut, 6 lines in the end of the page. It's pashut, it's a simple desire. The chasheka belev, and a desire in the heart. That's like, it's a feeling of the heart to the object that he likes. How much more so the midah itself before you actually love the object that you're thinking about. But it was not even a midah set. How much more so before it comes into the emotional state? It's only intellectual state. That he knows that nechmad v'noim, that it's sweet and delicious. The teva yafel asigai, it's beautiful to understand the v'lidavid. Okay. Again, now the Rebbe is bringing out one very important point. World is nothing compared to Hashem. What does it mean for us? So, like in Siddur in the morning, one of our guys always asks, so what does it mean in a practical sense for us? It means very simple. The whole universe is nothing. Yet, a little Jew does a little mitzvah, connects not to the universe, which is all one word from God's mouth, which is nothing compared to God. Universe, nothing compared to God. One word from Hashem's mouth created the whole universe. This tiny little Jew who does a tiny little mitzvah is binding and connecting themselves to the essence of Hashem. Now, if I realize this, not say it, not think it, if I feel it and live it, not live it, live it in a way that I actually feel that the world is nothing, the only thing that exists is Hashem. And therefore, all the temptations of the world, why should they interest me if it's all like the expression in Yiddish, a spayin yam, a guy spits into the ocean. What do you think? They're going to make the ocean flood? And by the way, if you spit into the ocean, you do add to the ocean because it's a finite ocean and it's still you're adding to it. So why is this so important for us to understand? In Sefer Shusterman, now the Rebbe is bringing out when a person realizes the greatness of the neshama and the greatness of the relationship the neshama can have with Hashem by doing a little mitzvah, by realizing the whole world is mamish nothing, the universe is nothing. So of course a person is going to want to do Torah mitzvahs. Why should a person take, so to speak, junk if you could take the real thing? But the problem is we have to knock it into our heads, into our hearts, and actually feel it and live it. And then it's good. And he says, if a person wants to learn a certain wisdom, he wants to eat a sweet food. So when you want to eat something that you know you like, you first have to think and realize intellectually that that's good, that thing is good. How do you know it's good? Because you tasted it already. So you tasted it already, you know it's good. But it all comes from saying, now, after, in other words, without thinking, not thinking, machshava, without intellect, you can't want anything. A baby, a newborn that had, it's instinct. Instinct is not seichel. Animals also have instinct. A baby doesn't know and understand that the mother's milk is sweet and the mother's milk is good. There's no intellect to understand that. Once you intellectually understand that it's good, and then that causes a desire of the heart, then it goes back up to the mind to think about it. So in other words, what's the system, the procedure? First, you understand it's good. That causes you to want it. And then you start thinking how to get it. But that's stage 3. And then, also then it goes back. It goes back up. From the heart to the mind. To think and to meditate in it. How to bring out my desire from the potential to the actual. How to get it. Or lemidas achachma, or learning the wisdom of the thing that you want to learn. Then that's when letters start being created. Not in the intellect, not in the emotions. There's no letters there yet. After you understand it's good, then you want it because it's good. Then you think how to get it and how good it is. Chain Aces, which are the letters Koloshin Am Va'am, which is the lesson of every single nation. Hamedabrim, who speak, Mahadidim Bohem, who speak and think about it, of Kolin Yoni Elam, all the things of the world. So now the Rebbe is saying in Parakhov, now we're going to go to Parakhov Aleph, that this is all by people. By Hashem, it's completely different. By a person, the system is like this. When I speak, compared to the power of speech, is nothing. Compared to the power of thought, is nothing. But those are still letters. Thought is letters. You think in letters. You speak in letters. Then you have midas, which are emotional levels, which have no letters in. I don't love in any language. Nobody loves in any language. Love is a universal language. There is no language for love. But in order to have the feeling, you have to understand that the person is what you want. That's why the Gemara says, Eina tinik yedei likris abba achi yechol tam davar. Gemara says a baby does not even know how to say the word father until he eats food. Davar, grain. Not milk of the mother, food, because that creates maturity. Without maturity, you don't have midas. Without midas, you can't have thought and speech. What is Alter Rebbe explaining by the nefesh? By the nefesh, one word, even compared to the koyach of speech and thought, which are letters, it's also nothing. How much more so to that level of the neshama that doesn't even have letters? There's no words there. And the same thing in intellect. When the word starts, just in human life, I realize it, I know it's good, I want it, and then I start thinking about it, how to get it. But that's it. There's no other way of doing it. This is all by a person. Now in Paragraph Aleph, Dr. Rebbe says like this. V'ine midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu by Hashem. What are we saying before? That Hashem created the world with one word, so therefore it's nothing compared to Hashem. And now Rebbe gave the analogy of a person. But he says by Hashem it's even more than that. V'ine midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the nature of Hashem is Shalei Kamidas Basa V'Dam. Okay? It's not like a person. Believe it or not, Hashem, thank God, doesn't function like a person. Meaning, when a person speaks, the air that you form letters with, is felt and noticeably different, a separate entity, separated from its source, which is Eser B'chinas and Nefesh Atzma. Meaning like this. Like there's an expression people say in Musar Svarim. Before you speak, you control your words. After you speak, your words control you. Okay, you can't take back what you speak. By a person, when I speak, the words become tangible, feasible. You can tape them, you can measure them, you can analyze them. They're tangible words. That means my speech leaves me. When I speak, the words go out of my mouth, as the English expression is. And therefore now they're a separated entity. By Hashem, speech never leaves him. So it's even less tangible, less connected to the essence than speech is. Speech becomes tangible. Like he says, once you speak, it becomes a separate entity, separated from its source, which are the 10 levels of the nefesh. But when Hashem speaks, when Hashem created the world, Hashem's speech don't leave him. They never separate themselves from Hashem. Why? There's nothing outside of Hashem. And there's no place free of Hashem. Therefore, Hashem's words are not at all anyway similar to our words. Our words leave us. Like we said, once your words leave you, they control you. You can never take them back. By Hashem, it never left Hashem. Because there is no place outside of Hashem. And if there is no place outside of Hashem, the words are still in, or to give another mashal, like the Rabbi explains later in Shayach and Vamunah. You have the sun, S-U-N, and you have the rays of the sun. The rays of the sun, Dr. Rebbe says, if they can shine all the way down to earth, they definitely exist in the sun. They definitely exist in the sun. But when the light of the sun is within the sun before it leaves the sun, it's only sun. When you look at the sun, nobody says, hey, there's the sun and the ray of the sun. When you look at the sun, the only thing that exists is the sun. The rays of the sun begin when they leave the sun. But the rays of the sun that definitely exist within the sun, in the sun, it's only the sun, not rays. When the source, i.e. the sun, is not there, that's when rays become rays. When I speak, the words leave me. Therefore, they become a separate entity. Kaviyachol, when Hashem speaks, the words never left him. And therefore, the universe, which is the word of Hashem, one word that it created the entire universe, not only is nothing compared to Hashem, it never left Hashem, it never came out of his mouth. That means the whole existence, and we're going to learn more, explain it more next week when we learn further. The whole existence of the universe is like the ray of the sun within the sun. And the only thing that exists is the sun. There's not even a world. Unlike when we speak, the words leave us. Hashem, they never left it because there isn't a place that God doesn't exist. If you say the words leave God, you're basically saying there's a place Hashem doesn't exist, and that's where the rays go to. That's where the speech goes to. There can't be. There is no place outside of Hashem. To be continued. Mitzvah Hashem next Wednesday. Anyway, everybody have a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Don't forget it's Shabbos Mevarchim Kislev. Everybody have a fantastic week. Hopefully we'll see you Monday night at 8 o'clock.